your values and fight for your friends. Fight through this blight, find the light at the end. Through the age of the dragon, the people will talk of the day they were saved by a hero named Hawk.
This is Reignite, Kirkwall's only true crime podcast. I'm Frankie.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
Who caught a live set from Kirkwall's own My Arcane Romance last night, which is why they sound like death. Today, however, we pick up the White Lily murders 3 years later and review some new information. As we know, our lead investigator was close with Kirkwall's guard captain at the time, Aveline Vallon. Hawk's notes show that Aveline came to them in their home with the request to talk to Templar Emmerich regarding his unsanctioned investigation into the missing women in Kirkwall, an investigation that was grating on her and the city guard. Matt, I have to ask you, how did you feel about Aveline recruiting our investigator for what should be standard police work?
I mean, it feels pretty typical of what we look at these days. Just shoving this work that should be hers off on someone else. It's clear that there are complicated feelings about digging deep into this, and also it goes against the Templars, where we know she is avoidant to butt heads with, but it does feel a little irresponsible to hand this off to her friend and freelancer instead of taking this work head on.
Especially given previously when we interacted with the White Lily murderer, Aveline was not yet a guard captain, so she did see firsthand what the murderer had done to a couple of dispossessed women in Kirkwall.
I mean, as we'll find out shortly also and discuss, there is some doubt around Emmerich's investigation, and so it could also be that maybe Aveline does not want to get involved because of the questionable nature of this case, and that most folks don't even feel that Emmerich has a lead to begin with, and maybe she figures Hawk can either get it done without less leads or just doesn't want to take that work on herself.
That's true. Also, according to the lead investigator, Aveline's approach was more of go keep him quiet, satisfy him so that way he stops stirring up trouble. It feels more like Hawk was being given the job of nursemaid and not so much there is a mystery going on that I am not able to solve, nor am I allowed to. I need you on the case. It feels more like I don't believe that this is actually happening and you have the clout to make this person shut up.
Basically, Aveline wants the lead investigator to make it go away.
Yeah. Which I don't feel is a good look. I feel that Aveline, as the guard captain, should be addressing this directly.
I mean, as discussed in previous investigations, Aveline is not always on the up and up when it comes to her own work or how she interacts with her coworkers. So this could be along those lines. Though a very good guard and very talented combatant, not always the great at organizing her own subordinates as well as, and she's new to the guard captain, right? She's been doing it for a while, but doesn't have the longevity of other guards in the service.
It had been 3 years since she took on the position. Yes. Let's continue. Hawk's interview with Emmerich indicated a suspect, Gascard Dupuis, who I feel should be detained due to that name alone.
Yeah.
However, when the city guard acted on this information, their search of his home yielded no evidence, and Dupuis had to be placated for the disruption. Emmerich was, as a result, forbidden from pursuing this investigation. To resolve the issue between Emmerich and the city guard, Hawk agreed to conduct their own investigation. That night, Hawk visited the Dupuis estate only to be confronted by shades and other demonic entities. Throughout the house, Hawk noted several peculiar pieces of evidence. Whether they pointed to Dupuis' guilt or innocence was yet to be determined. Let's go over the pieces of evidence that were located. First, there was a note thanking Dupuis for a shipment, stating that an artifact was on its way. The note also indicated that creatures are difficult to control even for experienced mages. Now, this is the first mention of Gascar Dupuis being a mage, and I find it very peculiar that even being an Orlesian noble, being a free mage doesn't ring any bells for anyone.
Yeah, and it's also strange that Emmerich wouldn't bring this up. No, there's a chance that Emmerich didn't know when talking to the investigator, but still, it does seem like an odd detail to omit.
Do you think that Dupuis was hiding his magic and no one actually knew that he was a mage?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, just based on what we know of the lead investigator's closest friend, Anders, they have gotten good at hiding those things or going down the right channels to avoid that information getting spread too far. I mean, as of now, it's debatable whether the lead investigator was a mage or not. There are rumors that they were, but we don't know for sure.
That's true. And also, nobility and money does allow you a bit of privilege to protect yourself from certain consequences. So it could be that Dupuis had enough money that no one looked at him closely. However, once it is revealed that Dupuis is a mage, I find it strange that nobody said that perhaps he should be questioned a little more closely.
Yeah.
Some other evidence that we received. Oh, also, do we think that the shades and demonic entities that the investigator faced were the creatures being controlled?
I mean, I think so. It's unclear because we'll get to it, but there is a conversation between the investigator and Dupuis, though unfortunately not having anything to do with Dupuis' horrid last name. And it is even unclear from that conversation whether these entities were summoned because blood magic is called into question. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Among the list of evidence, there is also a letter from the first enchanter of Starkhaven refusing Dupuis' request for information on missing mages. This doesn't indicate guilt or innocence, but it does prove that he has been asking about missing mages.
Yes, and so to know why is to know the rest of this case, but it does seem suspicious. That is a strongly suspicious thing to be doing, no matter what the purpose might serve.
The investigator also found vials of blood, indicative of blood magic experiments. Their colleague Anders, a mage in hiding from the Kirkwall Circle, did indicate that they were part of blood magic experiments.
Right, which paints a pretty stark picture of Dupuis and what he's up to, lacking any conversation, just based on the evidence. There's a lot of things here so far that could paint guilt for this noble.
We know that the investigator Hawk had a colleague who was a blood mage, and very possibly dabbled in blood magic themselves, for all we know. Is blood magic enough to cast doubt?
I would say this evidence is inconclusive, if you asked me, a non-professional observer, that we don't have enough information here, but I can see how biases would lead someone towards believing, just based on this information, that there is guilt here.
I agree. I don't think I would leap to guilt upon seeing the blood magic for myself, but I do think it would give me pause.
Yes, agreed.
I think it would make me more concerned. Some other pieces of evidence noted was an apology from Meredith, the leader of the Kirkwall Templars.
Which doesn't happen often, based on what I've heard.
It doesn't, and I think it indicates the level of power that Dupuis has, being a mage, possibly a mage in hiding, but also being a nobleman from Orlais. This prompts receiving a personal apology from Meredith. This task could have been passed along to a subordinate, such as the Templar Cullen, who did oversee trainees and more day-to-day activities among the Templars.
It also feels like this letter confirms our suspicion that it was unknown that Dupuis was a mage, because there's no way on any plane of existence that Meredith would apologize to a mage, in written form especially, which could be then used later. I just feel like, based on her strong feelings, we'd say, about mages, it seems unlikely that she would go out of her way to apologize to one, even with one with so much power, if she had known he was a mage. So I think this all but confirms that he was hiding that, and that most folks did not know.
I think that's fair. And also, in my opinion, the level of power and sway he has in Kirkwall as well as Orlais. Another piece of evidence that I find very interesting is the chest full of women's clothing.
Yeah. I don't have a good explanation or theory for that. Nothing sound, at least.
When reviewing the notes with a friend of mine, just bouncing ideas around, my friend suggested that the clothing could have belonged to a relative of Dupuis. But I still think that is reaching. I think that is reaching for a plausible explanation, but it's still far out there.
I would say that would be more likely if it was just a couple of pieces of, couple of like outfits, but like an entire chest full of women's clothes does feel like someone who is killing women would be hiding.
Right? It doesn't tell a good story.
No. I mean, again, there could be reasons. He could have family, he could have, friends, all who maybe stayed with him or whatever. He has a large estate, but it doesn't paint a friendly picture, I'll say that.
It is very suspicious. And lastly, the most suspicious of all, if you ask me, was Hawke's note of a woman crying for help.
Yes, when Hawke finally confronts Dupuis, there was literally a woman on her knees crying, which saying, I believe, end quote, he hurt me.
Yes, that Hawke found Dupuis in the upper bedroom along with this weeping woman who was later reported missing. Her name was Alessa. Dupuis was surprised by Hawke's appearance and claimed that he was on the hunt for the real serial killer who had murdered his sister 10 years prior. It begins with a bouquet of white lilies, a detail longtime listeners may remember from our exploration of Ninette de Carac's disappearance and subsequent murder. Dupuis continued to state that Alessa was the next victim and abducted her to learn the killer, as well as took a sample of her blood so that way he could track her if she were taken. Alessa was recorded to have said that Dupuis was lying and that he had hurt her. When asked why he did not report this to the city guard, he insisted that he had to be the one to avenge his sister's death. The real killer, as told by Dupuis, is a powerful blood mage who uses the women for a ritual. His victims are attractive, healthy women with few social ties. Our investigator had to make a call in the dark regarding Dupuis' innocence. What do your notes say?
So my notes say that Investigator Hawke asked a lot of questions trying to get to the bottom of this. Guilt was painted pretty strongly at this point based on the evidence discovered so far, but through conversation, Dupuis explains all of these things, that he's only doing what he must. When asked why didn't he go to the city guard, he brings up that he is a mage. If they found out, there's no way that they would believe him anyway, that it is coincidence. When asked about the woman, he says that he wasn't trying to hurt her. He needed a sample of her blood to try and lure the killer. A lot of this does seem very guilty, but when talking to Dupuis, Hawke says that it all would be a unique coincidence that all of this stuff lines up so perfectly for him to be the killer. It seemed pretty clear here that while Dupuis definitely wasn't doing things by the book and possibly even legally, he was not the one causing the murders. That if he was the killer and a powerful blood mage, why wouldn't he have attacked Hawke on sight, right? There was no reason to feign innocence here, especially as a powerful mage. So according to my notes here, Hawk says that he did believe Dupuis' innocence and did let him go.
We have to figure out what is going on with our sources because my notes tell a completely different story.
Okay.
My notes say that Hawk didn't believe Dupuis, and that when that simple statement was uttered, Dupuis said that he had worked too hard and it couldn't end like this, and attacked Hawk with more demonic entities and forced a chase throughout the mansion, resulting in a final confrontation in one of the larger rooms. And throughout it all, I can't help but wonder, if you're so innocent, why resort to this level of violence?
Yeah, it does seem strange. If your notes are more accurate, if the sources that you pulled from are telling the truth, then yeah, it would seem to paint your guilt further if you would attack upon further questioning.
So, of course, this could be a result of I refuse to be taken to the circle.
Right. And because if what he's saying is true, if what Dupuis is saying is true, that he is trying to avenge his sister, getting captured by Hawk or brought into being brought into the Templars means he would probably be taken to the circle, and it would stop his investigation on avenging his sister himself, which if he was desperate to do that, you might resort to some extreme measures, especially to avenge those that you care about.
However, I do find it very interesting that nowhere in the notes does it say that he that he became an abomination himself, which is something that we always see from the desperate refusing to go to the circle.
Right. It could back up this idea that he really was on a mission if he didn't turn into an abomination at the time, if he did hold himself back, since he did say in his statement that he was using blood magic because it was the only way he could find his sister, but was not the preference. It's not like he was he was not this killer who was using it as a ritual for dark intent. He was just doing whatever it took to try and avenge his sister.
Regardless of the discrepancy between our notes, your notes do say that we pick up at the gallows courtyard, correct?
Yes.
All right, so the investigation took a new turn. A Templar named Morva revealed that Emmerich had gone to meet Hawk as per a message delivered to the gallows earlier in the day. However, Hawk notes they did not send a message to Emmerich.
Yeah, it's very interesting here that it seems like someone is playing with the Templars at this point, messing with them, trying to mislead them.
Specifically Emmerich. Perhaps Emmerich got too close. Perhaps Emmerich knew too much. I find it very interesting that the Templars, Morva specifically, does not seem to care that Hawk did not have this message delivered. Doesn't it seem as though Templar superiors should have gotten involved if one of their own was tricked and led into a trap?
I mean, I think this further supports what we talked about prior, that the Templars did not take Emmerich's findings seriously. And so even in face of a clear double cross and misleadment, that they're still kind of laissez-faire about it, so to speak, that they just don't take it seriously, because even if he was tricked, because they don't think there's a real investigation here, they're like, well, he was tricked. Who knows? Maybe it was just someone messing with him. Like, this does not look like grounds for confirming the case that Emmerich's been working so hard on. To them, it just seems like further nonsense supporting how it was a waste of time. And so that attitude based on that background makes sense to me, though I don't agree with it.
Well, unfortunately, there is no happy ending for the Templar Emmerich. Hawk found him dead at the hands of demons. Morva followed soon after, shocked and dismayed that her colleague had been right, and he paid the price for everyone else's ignorance. Aveline, no longer convinced that Emmerich was a fool looking for something to fill his time, declares that the city guard will find Alessa, and Morva takes up Emmerich's cause. Kirkwall's most prolific serial killer will not be able to hide for much longer. So in conclusion, What do you think, based on your notes? Was Dupuis innocent? Guilty?
So, based on my notes, the investigator says that this is too complicated to summarize in such simple sentiments, that it's not just a matter of innocence or guilt. There's something more complex at play here. Dupuis is involved deep in more things that we can think. It is clear that this couldn't have been done by Dupuis because you were dealing with Dupuis around the same time this was happening. So clearly something else is at work here. But to say he's simply innocent is clearly untrue because he has done things in the spirit of trying to avenge his sister that were not right, that would indicate guilt, but of the greater crime of the White Lily murders, inconclusive. Seems unlikely, but it's hard to say at this point. But definitely something is going on, and it does seem, based on my notes, that Hawke is determined to get to the bottom of this, but doesn't have any clear answers.
Well, my notes indicate that Dupuis was already dead by the time this message was sent, so Dupuis couldn't have sent it. There is another element involved. I don't think that absolves Dupuis of anything. I think that Dupuis knew more than he was telling Hawke, and his refusal to talk further, his immediate leap into violence, I believe that it was such a huge backlash that it is not indicative of innocence.
I would agree, and based on both of our notes, the one thing we can agree on is that Dupuis is clearly not the White Lily murderer. However, that does not absolve Dupuis of guilt, but it does make clear, though, that regardless of whether Dupuis was innocent or not, that it is absolutely clear that he couldn't have committed the White Lily murders and couldn't have done this. So we may never know truly what Dupuis was or wasn't guilty of, but what we do know is that there's more going on here, and there's clearly more than one blood mage involved in all of the things happening around these murders.
And finally, as for Guard Captain Aveline Vallon, was her initial refusal to engage the result of reasonable doubt, or was she merely risk adverse?
It's hard to say here. Aveline is a professional based on other topics we've covered and other discussions around her work. She does take her work seriously. She does have a sense of justice and wanting to see things taken care of. And I will say that Aveline in the past has acquiesced to Investigator Hawke when she knows that she may not be able to get the job done through official channels, which could be that too. I think this says less about risk aversion and more about she knew something was up here, but couldn't take an official stance. So she went to Investigator Hawke, who can work outside the lines of the law because they are a private investigator.
I think based on the notes from Hawke's initial acquisition of the case, I would have said risk aversion, simply due to her attitude regarding Emmerich. But throughout the case, comments recorded by Aveline indicated that she did take Emmerich's investigation seriously at first, but because it resulted in a fruitless search, she couldn't continue to support him. So I would agree that there was reasonable doubt from her perspective, and that's why she brought it to Hawke. Again, as we know from studying Hawke's many, many cases, Hawke is able to suss things out that nobody else can.
That is true. Though, if Investigator Hawke, you're listening, which we hope you do, because that's why we do this, please take better notes. I find like every time that Frankie and I discuss your work, we are getting sourced information from third and fourth parties who are making mistakes. But that could just speak to how talented Hawke is at covering their tracks, that we can only go based on hearsay and rumors to confirm the results of these cases.
See, you need to find the notes that are notarized by Varric Tethers.
Yeah.
Because he was there. He knows.
It's true. But, I mean, just being there, Varric is also a very well-known storyteller, so could be telling tales.
That's true. I guess we'll never know the truth.
With all of that said, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Kirkwall's #1 True Crime Podcast. Before we sign off for this episode, we do have some fan mail in a audio log, which we would love to share. So without further ado, we will share that here, and we will see you on the other side of it.
Anathara, everyone. Here are some thoughts on episode 26 and A Bitter Pill. I have very little sympathy for the guy Fenris interrogates and kills. If he had been at my mercy, and I had been able to demand he stop being a slaver and seek atonement, things might have gone differently. If he had begged Fenris for a chance to reform, I would have wanted to intervene. As it is, not so much. But seeing what all that pain turned to hate is doing to Fenris is unsettling. Meryl's horrified reaction to finding people murdered for their blood makes it clear how wrong Fenris is to suggest she is anything like these magisters. But of course that does not stop him from making the accusation. Trauma is not an excuse for being an asshole, even if it is an explanation. I also chose to invite Orana to work at the estate, not so much because I assumed she would not be okay on her own, though I would worry about that, and more because I wanted to help as much as I could. Thought the best way to do that was giving her an income and a place of stability and safety while she figures out what to do next. Whatever the specifics of her life in slavery, the basic fact is that she is an abuse victim, and I know stability and safety were things I found very helpful when I got free. And when she is ready to move on, I will celebrate that with her. I always found the concept of giving or breaking one's word confusing. If there is a magic phrase that makes lying extra bad, does that diminish the badness of normal lying? Does it devalue everything one says that does not include the phrase? Too complicated for me. Much prefer to simply treat everything I say as a promise of honesty and despise all lies, with exceptions for preserving life and well-being, of course. And it is difficult to feel bad about lying to people who enslave others. So Fenris gets a pass this time. Even after Meryl and I help him find Hadriana, Fenris still refuses to make a distinction between Tevinter Magisters and all other mages. Hoping he can get there someday, but am not optimistic. Lashing out in anger is a thing I feel weird about. Conceptually, I am very much not okay with people doing it, and would never permit myself to let even the most intense neurodivergent emotions hurt someone else. But I am unbothered and very understanding when someone does it to me, though they should still apologize for it. The way Fenris talks about the hate within him kind of sounds like things I say. Frustrating as he can be sometimes, this topic brought my sympathy to the surface. I know how hard resentment can be to uproot. I also know the feeling of peace that doing so can bring, hoping he can get there. I am skipping most of the episode epilogue section for brevity, but for fellow listeners who are also uni students, if you have not already, maybe look into whether your uni health center offers free therapy for students, and take advantage of it while you can. As always, many thanks to Frankie and Matt, aka DJ Stormageddon. I apologize for the underscore bit last time. There is no underscore anymore, but the underscore will always live on in our hearts. For taking the time and effort to make Reignite. And remember, not all mages are bastards, not even close, but it kind of looks like maybe all Tevinter Magisters are, and definitely all Templars. We need to abolish the Templars and the Magisters.
We thank you for that. Thank you for interacting with us, as we are unable to do this show without the support of our listenership. We are, as we have said, Kirkwall's #1 true crime podcast, and having listeners like you who like to discuss topics both in this episode and from previous discussions, both on and offline, we are grateful for it, so thank you.
Kirkwall is not the only city with an ongoing crisis of missing women. Please visit nativehope.org and FromTheBottomUpFoundation.org to learn more.
As to what we will cover next, as you know, Kirkwall has plenty of crime to discuss. Join us next time as we explore who is behind the disruption of the mining operations at the Bone Pit. Perhaps this time it was an inside job.
If you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media at ReignitePod on Blue Sky, YouTube, and Instagram. Or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. You can also find Matt and I on Blue Sky. I'm Frankie B. Wrights, and Matt is DJ Stormageddon. No underscore.
Please stop bringing it up.
But the fans like it.
Please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. It helps more folks find this podcast. We are always trying to break through the mighty algorithm and surface. And if you want others to enjoy true crime, Kirkwall-based podcasts like this one, please rate, review, and subscribe, or just tell a friend. Tell one friend who loves the going-ons in Kirkwall, and maybe they will tell a friend after that, and that way we can grow just a little more.
Did you know that we're members of the Certain Point of View Network? You can visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on that website. Come on and join the conversation.
As for personal plugs, I don't have anything new going on at the moment other than to just check out my other podcast, Fun and Games, that I host with the incredible Jeff Moonen. We have some really great interviews coming up with some really cool folks in and around the games industry. So you can go to funandgamespod.com to find out more about that.
As for me, I am currently in thesis crunch time, so any projects I have are on hold. However, you can still purchase your very own copies of Caught Alight and Writing from the Heart, currently available on Amazon. And if you enjoy reading what I wrote, you can kick me $1 or $2 on PayPal at Frankie B. Wrights. I make no money on the anthologies, so if you like me, give me $1.
We'd also like to thank the one and only Case Aiken for developing some awesome shirt designs that you can find at certainpov.com or on the Certain POV Teespring. Also, thanks to Case for designing each episode's individual artwork.
And we'd like to thank Miracle of Sound for our theme music. If you enjoy what you hear when you listen to our podcast, you can check out miracleofsound.rocks.
And of course, thank you to Red Spinks for designing our Dragon Age inspired logo. To see more of his work, you can go to Chaos Desart on Instagram.
Lastly, thank you for listening. I'm Frankie.
And I'm Matt A.K. Stormageddon.
And remember, all Templars are bastards.
Fight for your values and fight for your friends. Fight through this blight, find the light at the end. Through the age of the dragon, the people will talk of the day they were saved by a hero named Hawk. Hawk, 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 Hawk.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken,
And I'm Sam Alisea.
and on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating,
But flawed.
and we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.